Every TV show has to start somewhere and LEGO Ninjago is no exception. Welcome to the pilot episodes, the prehistoric era of Ninjago. Many of you will probably remember watching these as a kid, I certainly did, but since that point about 8 years has passed and about 12 years have passed since the actual pilot episodes releasing. So now comes the time where we get to feel incredibly old but also ask ourselves, do they hold up after all this time? I know some people watch these different ways. Some people watch them as a cut of 4 11-minute episodes and other people watch them as 2 22-minute episodes. This video is going to be discussing the version that's 2 episodes long, although the actual contents are the exact same, just formatted different. The first of the 2 episodes, Way of the Ninja, starts us out with this absolutely iconic, beautiful shot of Wu walking up to Kai's blacksmith shop. Detail-wise, it's pretty basic, but the colours here are really great, and there's a lot of beauty in that simplicity. Here we meet Kai, who we immediately learn is impatient and a terrible blacksmith, which is going to be incredibly important about 10 seasons from now. Sensei Wu shows up and critiques how Kai's gear is not useful for stealth at all, and then walks away. After this, the skeleton army shows up and we get the first action scene in all of Ninjago, and I think this is an incredibly important scene. Not because of the plot impact or that it sets up some insane character moment, but because of what it represents. If you were to ask me what LEGO Ninjago represents as a franchise aesthetically and in terms of its world building, I'd probably tell you something like this. Ninjago is a mix of usually Asian-inspired fantasy elements and tropes and technology. And when it comes to stuff that represents that aesthetic perfectly, I really can't think of a better scene than this. These magical skeleton samurai people show up in their giant hulking monster trucks and motorcycles and start laying waste to a farming village. The scene is absolutely pure Ninjago and I love that about it. The actual fight choreography is pretty good, there's some funny moments, but it's not that remarkable, especially in comparison to later fights. The skeletons eventually find some mysterious map in Kai and Nia's shop and then they steal Nia, who I forgot to mention for the 5 people who don't know that is Kai's sister. After this, Sensei Wu gives us the iconic long before time out of name exposition dump, explaining to us how the first Spinjitzu master used the 4 weapons of creation to create Ninjago, and that how his brother Lord Garmadon would eventually get greedy and try to take them for himself, which would end in him being banished to the underworld and the weapons hidden. I have 2 main things to say about this scene, and one, I really love the art style here. It's very simple and charming, but it also looks very, very nice. I might be biased because I'm obviously very nostalgic for this, but I think it looks good. And the second thing, looking back on the original pilot, some of Wu's voice acting was pretty rough. It's very clear that Paul Dobson was trying to go for a very stereotypical Asian master voice, which doesn't really work given the dude isn't Asian, so a lot of the time it sounds like an over-the-top impression rather than someone actually talking. I much prefer later versions of Wu's voice where this aspect is toned down quite a bit.
I told you. Useless. But is this one a sign of good or bad?
And I just want to clarify, I don't think Wu's voice was bad in the pilots outright, I just think it had a lot of room to be improved.
Father would not want you to do this, brother.
After this, Kai would be recruited by Wu to join his ninja team, which Kai reluctantly accepts because he wants to save his sister. Kind of basic, but is an understandable motivation for his character. Leading us into another iconic scene, the training course scene. Part of me wishes that this was shown to us more than just a montage scene, but I can get why it was given the 44-minute runtime they had to work with. But despite that, this is an incredibly well done montage that conveys what it needs to pretty well. Seeing Kai's progression and becoming more familiar with the training course was very satisfying to watch. After this, we're introduced to the other ninja, who immediately realise that an unexpected visitor is at their monastery, which leads to, and I know I've been saying this word a lot in this video, an absolutely iconic fight scene, which Master Wu quickly breaks up, leading Kai to realise that these ninja who just attacked him are also Wu's students, and that this fight was his final test. The next iconic scene from the pilots we have on the chopping block is the scene where the ninja get their colours. I don't really know what to say about this scene, it's wonderful. It's our first real look into the characters of Jay, Cole and Zane, who are very entertaining in the pilots. And the characters all bounce off of each other incredibly well, there's great chemistry here. Jay is your jokey smart type, Cole is the tough leader type, and Zane is, well, he's Zane.
I sense this one takes things a little too seriously.
You too have the gift?
Zane is great, man. After this, Wu reminds the ninja that they've been chosen to protect the golden weapons, and then they set off to find them. After this, the ninja head to the Caves of Despair to get the Scythe of Quakes, and tell each other how Sensei Wu found them in the first place. What I love about these little moments is how basic they are. They tell us what we need to know about the characters in the moment, but they leave plenty of room to be expanded upon in future seasons. And be expanded upon they would. Anyways, after this great little interaction, the ninja reach the Caves of Despair. And it's here that Kai shows his primary character flaw. He's impulsive and he thinks he can protect everyone. With that in mind, Kai goes to try and steal the scythe on his own, breaking the ninja's original plan, which doesn't really get him anywhere. But as soon as he starts to let the others in and accept help from them, he finally starts to make progress. I think this is a great little character moment and it perfectly encapsulates the character of Kai. and does a really good job at showing us why the team's dynamic is so important, both to the overall story of Ninjago and the conflict that's happening on screen. After this, the skeletons catch wind of what the ninja are doing, leading to this absolutely legendary fight. Samakai is just standing there though. Why is he just standing there? Anyways, after a while of fighting, the ninja unlocks Spinjitzu and absolutely destroy the skeletons, leading them to thinking they're home free. That is before they notice a giant earth dragon behind them. As it turns out, the guy isn't too happy that they stole his scythe. So, going against Sensei Wu's orders, Kai uses the scythe against the dragon. This causes the cave to start collapsing in on itself and the ninja barely make their escape. Wu then tells off Kai for using the scythe and risking the safety of his teammates, and then they move on to find the next weapon. And now, introducing Lord Garmadon. This is the first scene in the entire series where we hear him talk, and he definitely makes an impression, revealing to Samakai that the ninja learning Spinjitzu and getting the Scythe of Quakes was all according to his design, indicating to us that he has some ulterior motive. This brings us to the second of the 2 pilot episodes, King of Shadows. At the start of this episode, we're introduced to the Tornado of Creation, the most powerful move in all of Spinjitzu that combines the 4 elements of creation: fire, ice, earth, and lightning. The tornado has the ability to create something out of nothing. After this conversation, we're showed a montage of the ninja getting the shurikens of ice and the nunchucks of lightning, which I think was a good move. On the one hand, it would probably be nice to see more in-depth versions of the scenes where the ninja get the shurikens and the nunchucks, but on the other hand, we know the gist of what happens here. The ninja go into some magic place, they get a golden weapon, and then they escape a dragon. We already have a super fleshed out scene of this happening with the scythe. Do we really need to waste 2 more of them on the other weapons? I think this was a good move as it frees up runtime for more important stuff, which will happen later in the episode. Speaking of, we get this really nice scene right after of the ninja just relaxing after all their hard work and enjoying each other's company. I think this scene is absolutely wonderful and does a great job at showing us that the team do genuinely enjoy each other's company. It's an important scene to have to sell the team's dynamic to us, and I think it does a good job at doing that. Kai's also settling in a lot more to his role on the team now, which is great to see. But then it's Garmadon time. Kai sees Nia in the woods and follows her to the fire temple, only to find out that this is an illusion created by Garmadon, who did all of this to lure him here. Kai is presented with a choice: pull the sword of fire out for Garmadon or Nia is killed. This feels like the scene to me where Kai really embraces his role as a ninja. He stays calm, centers himself, and remembers what Wu taught him to get the sword and free his sister. After this, we see one of the most creative fight scenes in the show's entire 12-year run. Kai is pitted against his own shadow and could do nothing to disable it. But just before it's too late, Wu shows up and uses his own shadow to fight the shadows. He even makes little shadow puppets with his hands to fight the shadow Kais with. What a wonderful and creative little action scene. After this, Wu and the others catch wind of the fact that Garmadon is going to steal the other 3 weapons from the currently sleeping ninja team, and is then planning to bring the weapons to the fire temple in order to unite them. Knowing this, Wu decides to mess up his brother's plans by taking the sword of fire to the underworld, where Garmadon follows suit, leaving Kai and Nia to deal with the fire dragon. After this, the skeletons make their way to the underworld with the other 3 weapons of Spinjitzu in their captivity, leading to another incredibly entertaining fight scene from the pilots.
Cool.
Wouldn't it be great if Jay lost his voice in the modern seasons? This fight scene ends with the skeletons getting away with the golden weapons and taking them to the underworld, leaving the ninja in a position where they feel like they've totally lost. The balance of good and evil starts to act up, and the ninja have no way of getting to the underworld and helping Wu, who, speaking of, we cut back to and is now in the underworld. A nice little detail here I really appreciate is how his teapot's all smashed up from the journey to the underworld. Anyways, Wu heads off to confront his brother, and then we cut back to the ninja, who are just arriving at the temple from my intro. Here, Kai reveals to the others that they have one last hope: the dragons. After realizing that Kai was here to protect the Sword of Fire rather than steal it, the dragon became quite friendly, leading Nia to give us a small exposition dump about how the dragons are able to travel between realms. Being afraid of dragons, Cole tries to lie his way out of this situation by saying there isn't enough room on the dragon, leading to this. One of the most iconic and beautiful scenes in the entire series in my opinion. Even if just for the nostalgic value, this scene absolutely captured me as a kid and I loved it. Also, the music here, as with literally every single scene from every single Ninjago season, is absolutely amazing. Anyways, this awesome scene leads us directly into the underworld. The ninja end up getting cornered by the skeleton army pretty quickly and use the Tornado of Creation to escape. I love this scene. It's a great example of the ninja coming together and using what they've learned to defeat the skeletons, and I've really enjoyed that about it. I know this is a completely different season, but I love how season 10 ends up paralleling this. It makes me love both scenes even more. Anyways, the ninja catch up with Master Wu, who is currently fighting Samakai. Wu fights well, but eventually loses because Samakai has more of the weapons than he does. But then Samakai tries something. When he's presented with all 4 of the golden weapons, he's presented with ultimate power. If he takes that last weapon, he can do anything. So he decides to betray Garmadon, which unfortunately for him was exactly what Garmadon was planning this entire time. Samakai cannot behold the power of all 4 golden weapons and as a result is completely vaporized, leaving a mysterious portal in his wake. Garmadon claims that on the other side of this portal is the power he needs in order to possess all 4 golden weapons at once. After this, Garmadon leaves to who knows where, and the ninja reclaim their weapons. Garmadon is gone, but he eventually is going to return. So, the ninja commit to continuing their journey as ninjas, and fighting Garmadon whenever he chooses to return. After this, the balance is restored, and the ninja return home together as a team, reunite with Nia, and celebrate their victory. On that note, the Ninjago pilot episodes end. I think these episodes have stood the test of time remarkably well, and still hold up to this day. Throughout this video, you might have noticed me calling a bunch of stuff from these episodes very simple or basic. Now, a lot of the time when you call something basic, it would be usually associated with being bad, but I think that's the pilot's greatest strength. The pilots tell the story of the traditional hero's journey through Kai. It's a tried and true story structure that's very hard to get wrong, but Kai's is done very well in my opinion. Now, that might sound like I'm trying to spin it into some deep analysis, but I'm really not. The story of the pilots is incredibly simple, which allows it to make way for the introduction of concepts and world building. That, I believe, is how you start off a show well. Think of some good series off the top of your head. Halo, Breaking Bad, Star Wars. In comparison to their follow-ups, the first installments of these series are all incredibly simple and have very few moving parts. This is because when you start a series, the first thing you should be doing, above some insane character arc or insane multifaceted conflict between characters or whatever, is you should be doing just enough to sell this series to people. Show us why we should be invested in this world and characters at a very basic level, and then make us want more of it. After that, you can and absolutely should be making your story more complex. But as far as the first installment goes, try and keep it simple. The Ninjago pilots are iconic, entertaining, nostalgic, have great characters, and above all else, represent this philosophy incredibly well, which is why I think they were such a success.